This is Rock Pops. I'm Joe Pecora, and as always, we have Bill Gagliardi here.
Hello.
And we have our special guest back, Mr. John Disalvo.
Hello.
And we're just gonna talk about some music and shit.
Yes.
Because of our listenership, I think maybe it's time for us to try to get some advertisers. I mean, we have 2 listeners.
Yes.
What local business wouldn't want that kind of clout in their that kind of advertising?
Like, I had an uncle who does some real estate, so maybe he could tag on or something.
Right, Uncle Tony's Real Estate.
Uncle Tony's Real Estate, exactly.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking so there are these 2 Mexican restaurants that are right in town,
right,
in Great Kills,
joke.
and they're great.
Yeah.
They're really good. But I was wondering, sure, we have 2 listeners now.
Yeah.
But maybe in the future, say we have 50. So what I'm saying is we start by going, that Ariana's Mercado is really, really great.
Right.
And it's not like that shitty place down the block.
So you want to do some WWF style smear
I'm saying
promos.
Right, or maybe we don't make it so aggressive in the beginning. Maybe it's
very gentle, but then we get smeary.
Maybe be like, oh, you know what? That Ariana Mercado is really great. The only thing is maybe that the tacos are a little greasy.
Yeah.
And then you go, but there is that Iguana Azul down the block.
Which is good.
Which is pretty good, right?
You leave little shotguns on the wall,
Right.
And then you talk about the time you got food poisoning there, right?
And then they just kind of maybe they start vying for our who's going to be top spot, and
highest.
I'll give you more money. I'll give you more money. I'll give you free tacos.
It'd be funny. You just start leaving Yelp reviews, but at the end of the review, you leave the link to your podcast.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
But you leave reviews on everything on the island.
Maybe we should do that for our bands and our projects.
Yeah, but maybe good reviews, not even bad ones. You interact. I don't know what.
Make them funny.
Make them funny the ones that are going to get likes. But you leave this review brought to you by
Movers.com.
It's a glowing review. Yeah.
Right. I like that. That's a great idea.
If you're listening to this, don't do this.
No, do it.
No, this is good. This is good.
Some out of the box thinking.
Nobody else does this. Nobody just makes up accounts and gives themselves positive reviews.
Brought to you by whatever.
We're thinking of this first, right?
Yeah, it's great. So today we were going to talk about a famous band from the 60s.
Yes.
Called The Seconds.
Yeah.
Just kidding. So, no, we're going to talk about the band that 3 of us were in.
Yes. And also, what we just did was pretty much what almost all band practices were. Setting turf wars with fast food joints. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about the Seconds today. What we're going to do on this podcast is every once in a while we'll do an autobiographical episode. We'll have a guest from the band. Today we have John Disalvo, who is the lead singer of the Seconds and key founder. And we're just going to reminisce about it a little bit and talk about past shows, past albums, some songs that we liked, and what was and what is to become.
So, John.
Oh.
Yeah, let's get a genesis of the Seconds. Where did it come from? How did it start? And
when did Peter Gabriel leave?
It started from I played open mics and I met Joe at the open mic, and I was really, working on my singer-songwriter thing at that point.
Yeah.
And they had this festival coming up at Snug Harbor, and a lot of people from the scene were getting on it. And Joe suggested, "Oh, you should play." And I said, "Maybe," but he said you should play as a band. And that thought really didn't get into my head because I just had no frame of reference for it. One of my problems is I don't play well with others. I don't know. I still don't know if I do. I like to, but I'm not sure if I'm good at it.
And there was a long time. I would say there was a period of about 3 to 4 years where you were just going under the jump.
Oh yeah, where I was just playing solo stuff, and I kind of look back at that and I miss that I had these chops where I could, any night of the week, and I could play 15, 20 songs just out of my head. And I probably couldn't play 2 right now.
And a lot of those were from Slip Away. Like, you had a lot of proto Slip Away stuff.
A lot of those
going
ended
on.
up on our first album.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because it's like, well, I don't have a band. And Joe's like, yeah, well, we'll be your band, you know? And I think that he got stuck holding the bag because nobody else wanted to do it. And Joe was like, well, I'll still be in the band. And we kind of put the...
Yeah, no, totally.
No, but
it.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, I thought that what you thought was like, the people you were playing with at that time would have been more of the backing band. And not, I don't know if they weren't into it or just didn't line up, but you were still into
I think I was just throwing it out there. But yeah, I mean, we ended up having a band, though.
That's what I mean.
That
You were
first-
throwing it out there.
yeah.
You didn't realize that you were getting... Yeah, we ended up having a band, which was cool. And like we kind of put this show together for this Snug Harbor gig. Joe Patches played drums, which was cool. I worked with him at a restaurant at the time, and I knew him from the open mic. And it's funny,
Who played bass?
Matt Lindau?
Oh, it wasn't your cousin at the time.
No.
Oh.
And he didn't play the whole show either because he didn't really play bass. He just showed up and I told him what key every song was in.
He just he bounced in the middle. He's like, I can't do this.
But the bass wouldn't stay in tune. So he was like, I can't do it, guys. And he left halfway through the show. It was a terrible show.
Can I tell you, I'm gonna be the king of awkward
do it.
tangents. So I didn't recognize him maybe 10 years later.
I mean, nobody could fault you for that. It's 10 years.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I'd seen him around, and he just showed up at I think at an ex-girlfriend's. He was dating my ex-girlfriend, and I was at a party, and I was like, "Oh, hey, how you doing, man? Nice to meet you." And it was just like
We were in a band together,
We
man.
were in a band, man. Get out of here.
right. It was just very awkward. And now that you said that, I didn't really even put that together
Yeah,
until
he's
right
a doctor
now.
now or something. That
Good
guy.
for him.
Wow.
That guy.
Doctor of bass.
Doctor of...
So, what happened after that?
Well, I mean, was the name The Seconds originated then, or was it later? So
no.
you were doing the John and Friends. Like, it was just like...
John and Friends. And we did that, and I didn't even think it was going to be... It was a one-off.
And it was not a good show.
It was not a good show. I have video of it. I did something really stupid, which is... I was living my street skull of fantasy, back then where it's like, whatever, man. I had a broken string on my guitar, and instead of buying a new string for $1, I kind of just tied a knot in the end, and I was like, this will be great. And
it was.
What happened as soon as I played the first song, it broke, and I couldn't play. I played guitar with 5 strings often back then, and it didn't work out. It was trash.
It was your brand.
It was my honestly, not caring and being trash was kind of my brand back then.
We played at noon.
And we played on the unwelcome stage.
Yes.
We called it. So
It was
this
us and Groundwater.
Rock the Harbor had what they called, quote, the welcome stage. Bill, do you know the stage?
No, I wasn't at the show.
So let me ask you, because you're a good candidate for this. If you were going to go to a festival and there was a thing called a welcome stage, where do you think the welcome stage would be placed?
At the entrance?
Thank you.
Yeah.
The welcome stage was placed about a half a mile away from anything that mattered, on the outskirts of the festival,
And facing away from
and facing away from the festival to the street. So I called it the unwelcome stage.
This sounds like fantastic planning.
We were mad at that, and it was kind of shitty. Whatever. It kind of snowballs into the. And I think that on the outset we had the chip on our shoulder that was going to lead to the seconds.
That's
you know what? And fuck those people on the welcome stage.
Yeah, us included. No.
Well, on the main stage.
On the main
Yeah.
stage, yeah.
Right, which, by the way, I was on the main stage.
Well,
No big
with Happy
deal.
Anarchy.
Because this
were
was
you? Yeah.
this was 2009 at this point, right? Or 2008.
Yeah, it was
So Happy Anarchy was still
it
in
was
reset
us.
mode.
It was us and then the Budos.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No fault about the people on the main stage. But it was just it just felt strange. Why would you even book this thing?
Yeah.
And it was a bunch of the people that were the acoustic acts. You should have put it
We just needed a warm body, so
You should have put it. I don't even care if it was before ticket sales, but it should have been, on the outs. Like you said, it should have been a welcome stage. You're walking up to the venue, you see acoustic acts or small bands.
music is
The whole
happening.
thing was real loose.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Well, I mean, that's why it never happened again. Or did it happen one more time?
It was a
or
great
No,
idea.
it didn't.
we just had Van Duzer
It was.
Fest after that.
It was put together by this guy Ben Johnson, who actually works for NPR now.
Yeah, I don't fault Ben Johnson.
No,
At that time, and you know what?
People just gave him a lot of shit. Staten Island is
I
rife
don't like.
with that.
We've done it a lot of times, and I've done it personally. And somebody comes in here and wants to see what we're all about, and we give them the business.
Right, because it's an island mentality, and it's like
You don't know about me, but I think it's also like we don't want you to disrupt the hierarchy.
right. But at the same time, nobody here gets out alive.
But we shoot ourselves in the
like-
foot, and I regret things like that. I've done that. You know.
Of course, but I mean, like
Nobody gets out alive.
That's what it is. It's like nobody. They can, it's like Highlander. It's like there can be only one, and
Yeah.
like people just will tear that
Yes.
band down.
But yeah.
Now, was just the whole experience here the reason why the band was called the Seconds?
That's pretty
No,
close.
there's a specific gig that happened, but this is the chip on the shoulder that starts. So then like we start playing. Then my cousin Mike, after like that event, was like, I play bass. I should play. And he gets involved. So we start playing some of my songs. The event that it's that weird, like in the relationship where it's like, are we in love? Who's going to say it first? Where it's like, are we a band type of thing, was we booked a Thanksgiving Eve show.
Yes.
We didn't know it was Thanksgiving Eve. We were playing on a Wednesday night at Martini Red because that's the level that we were at, I guess, at that point. And also, we would play anywhere at any time, so we were just booking everything. And they sent me a message on MySpace saying that, we're sorry, but your show, you can't play this Wednesday because it's Thanksgiving Eve, basically.
Yeah.
And we were not really anything.
We need a bigger draw band.
Yeah,
obviously.
for who I am now, I understand it. But for who we were then, I got really mad.
Oh yeah, I mean I've been
And-
double booked before, and I didn't go to Martini Red for a year because of it.
Yeah, so we were mad, and so the Seconds came out of that gig.
Yeah,
And basically the Seconds are like, you're second best.
yeah, you're the afterthought.
Number two.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're the afterthought band.
yeah,
And we kind of all felt like that. But, again, who I am now, probably everybody feels like that.
Yeah.
But maybe that's why it's good. Maybe that's why it's resonant. And why a lot of people connected with that first album and the things that we did at that time. But that's where the name came from. That show specifically.
I mean, it set the precedent of and this is what attracted me to the band too, was that from that point it was okay. We're just going to be the scrappy kids that are just going to go for broke, and we're just going to have
Scrappy
as much.
kids in their late 20s.
Yeah, the scrap.
All right, we were scrappy kids in our late 20s.
No, but I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But and that was part of the fun because it's we don't give a shit.
Which-
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut
For
you.
better or worse.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Right. That I feel like which was the up and the down
And the downfall
of the band.
Yeah.
Which is yes, we always had that thing. We liked the idea of being
Fuck you, I don't care.
Yeah.
But then if somebody actually mattered and came to us and was like, no, I represent bands. Fuck you, I don't... no, that's the guy I should be talking to. And that was a lot of my regrets now, is that I didn't know who I should have been nice to at the time. Because we were trying to be so punk rock, I guess. I don't know.
But it was fun. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say that there was a really fun. I'm sorry, Bill. This was before you were in the band.
Oh yeah, no, it's
Yeah, 'cause
before my time.
there is
There's
a Seconds 1.0 and
eras.
2.0.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, you were saying, the "Are we a band?" type of thing that happened twice in the band.
And even though the Seconds 1.0 was definitely shorter lived than 2.0, it is a different attitude and a different era of the band.
I mean, that's where it picked up almost all of the steam, though. That's where we started, or at the time.
2.0 is the band.
2.0 is the band, but the who the Seconds are, that's where you started getting the Rich Russo stuff and putting on
So-
92.3
What were you saying, Joe?
and getting really established.
No, that build up with the Rich Russo stuff was we did his record day tour,
Yeah.
which was just
Awesome.
around New Jersey, and honestly,
One of the best things I still have.
we had a great time. It was and it was actually a pretty cool thing. Everybody gave Rich a lot of shit for it, but it was a really cool idea, and we of all of the bands I think made the most of it. Not because we're okay, we're just showing up at places and playing music, playing a song, and it's not going to sound good. There's nothing that we don't have the opportunity.
There's no
to,
sound system.
Nothing.
There's no full band. We're gonna.
No. It's going to be shit. But they're going to have like 3 cases
It was
of
sponsored
beer in
by
the back of the
PBR.
bus.
Oh,
And we got on the bus, and they had the whole bus was full of PBR, and all these other prima donnas were like, "This is warm," and move away. And we got on the bus like, "No, we're gonna be pounding PBRs all day."
Yeah, it was a combination of like, these are warm. I'm not going to drink this stuff, and also people are like, no, I have to keep my voice. I have to do
My
this.
instrument.
I
It's
have to
like,
do
bro,
5 shows. It's
instrument,
like, no.
you're gonna be playing acoustic in the back of a record store. Nobody's gonna be
Nobody's
looking
listening.
at you. It's gonna be a bus full of other musicians. Like nothing matters right now.
So
Just
me,
have a good
John,
time.
and Mike are in the back.
And honestly, like, I'm sorry, you go first.
No, we were just sitting in the back, and like after like the first one, I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll just have 1 or 2. I don't want to
Yeah.
keep. And then we realized that nobody else was drinking it.
We were getting hammered.
And then after the first like show, we went for broke, and we were obnoxious assholes in the back of the bus.
Yeah, and you know who else we hung out with? Who actually was pretty cool that day was Christina LaRocca.
Oh yeah,
Was on that tour,
Sure.
and she was cool. But Mia Torres, the photographer, who I still kind of interact with on Instagram, takes really good photos.
Yeah.
And she was really cool with us.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where it was like, you can tell who the prima donnas were who were on there and thought they were going to be on American Idol, and you could tell who the real people that were just like there, like, we're just gonna have a good time.
yeah.
You know,
It's such a weird mix of, and I feel like we've all been there, where like you're in that project where it's like, oh, we're probably going to make it, so like we got to like walk the straight and narrow, or we really don't give a shit.
If I could go
and
back
just we're having fun.
and talk to myself, I probably wouldn't listen. But if I could go back and do it again and be in those shoes, I think you could do both. Like
Yeah.
there were people that I should have connected with more. There were things that we could have did, and those are the regrets that I have. Like the people I should have been nicer to or taken more seriously.
But I think like
You don't have to be the people that were on that with the honey and the, going to play at vintage vinyl. But also you didn't have to be like, fuck you.
Well, I don't think we were really that though. We were
No,
In my head, maybe it's that.
Yeah, I don't think
It was
we were
more of
never,
the-
like. I don't think any of us were that person.
Over the top. you
Yeah,
think?
I mean, as a matter of fact, there was
It's just
another
maybe
band
my
there
own
that.
personal like regrets. I think.
yeah.
No, was speaking of, was the Dirty Pearls on that
Yes,
in the bus?
yes, and we were the rowdy ones.
That's what I mean. They
Yeah.
didn't drink like us because. I mean, I like Tommy London, honestly. Like,
Sure, yeah.
but I didn't realize Tommy London was on that bus. But I like Tommy London. Like,
Because I remember, like, we had, like, I think there were 5 places that we went to.
Yeah.
And after the third one, Rich opened up the back of the bus. And there was just, like, cans just fell out of the bus.
But also-
and it was just, like, me, him,
The
and
thing
Mike,
is-
like, sitting there, like, wow.
in that vein, the attitude of the seconds was: you think that you're going to come here and if Tommy London shows up and the Dirty Pearls and they look rock and roll, we're drinking you under the table out on principle.
Sure.
So like, let's blame him for the reason why we got so drunk.
You want to blame Tommy London?
No, I like Tommy.
All right.
You know.
Yeah, don't worry. He's not going to hear this.
But if he does,
I find it so fascinating that like it's everybody for the most part, and especially back then. This is like 2008, 2009. Like, arguably compared to other bands, like especially like bad boy bands. I'm throwing air quotes up here, but like you guys are all like we were all clean cut. You know, like we were all just like more not accessorizing, not like wearing like leather or anything
But
like
also,
that.
we
or
weren't-
like
right.
maybe I
learn
should have
dress.
been.
No,
more.
I think that would have went against the episode of everything. The whole point of everything.
We were very like, and you know what?
It's just being authentic, but we,
Yeah.
you know,
We're just-
authentic with a
we're
little
having
bit of
fun,
fun.
you know?
When we
like-
were on when we were playing around, I always liked that if Frank Duffy always was called us and Headlock the post-ironic bands,
Right.
and that always it didn't make a lot of sense until afterward for me, but it makes a lot of sense now. It's like we were over it, like we took everything very seriously, whether people realized it or not at that point. When it was a time period when people were being silly and it was very satire, and we were just like, I don't know.
there was no gimmick.
At least it felt like there was no gimmick.
Yeah.
This is a audience of 2. This is a very like Staten Island insular kind of conversation.
Nobody.
Yeah.
We apologize for anyone who doesn't know anything about it. So let's
go to that.
let's steer it towards.
Well, I want to go into Slip Away, because Slip Away was because at the time of Record Store Day, you already had the second recording of Garbage Man. Garbage Man was the first single from the seconds.
Yeah.
It had radio play.
Sick Cowbell.
Yeah, Sick Cowbell.
But that was still around the time that you were recording
Can we
it.
get Rich Russo on the podcast at some point?
Honestly, I would love that. I bet you he would do it.
No, he would.
He would absolutely do it. Yeah.
I'd love to touch base with him.
Yeah,
But-
I was thinking about that the other day, because I see his tweets. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna say
And
that.
I would, if it's okay, I would come back on for that and
Sure.
talk about the cowbell. I'm sorry.
But you were recording Slip Away from November of 2009 to into 2010, because it was around the same time that I was doing Villain.
Okay.
So what was going on there? Like, what type of shows were you playing? Because again, this is I'm just from the outside looking in.
And
around
that's
that
what I
time.
think is good, because honestly, like Joe was saying, it's very dude, the only people that are going to get all the maybe ins and outs of what we're talking about are if you're around there in the band, so we don't want to get too into the scene that doesn't exist, that maybe it wasn't a scene. But yeah, you're right. So Slip Away started, and again, Joe has a lot of hand in giving me the nudge into the band world.
Yes.
And honestly, I guess maybe you're a better person to talk about that, because for me it was always we're playing my songs blah, when we're getting into the Slip Away stuff. But from your perspective as the outsider, the other person that's not me, what is your perspective on the starting of Slip Away, I guess, Joe, and the recording of that album?
For me, it was a lot of fun, because I was in a band for a really long time that went through a bunch of different phases. It started out as the Sweat Hogs, and when I was in college, I'm older than these guys by about 10 years, and that evolved over time, into Happy Anarchy. And Happy Anarchy, we really kind of did a push for, did a bunch of touring, and that got to a weird place around that time that I
What
met
do you mean, weird in terms of people started falling off, or weird of
people started falling off, and also I think it was right around the same time, and I had been playing music for from 94 till that point.
Yeah.
And for the first time ever, we played a show, and it was our shows were getting bigger, and they probably could have but people started falling out.
Yeah.
And the morale of the band was changing. And we played a show at the Bell House in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And it was a big show. There was a lot of people there. And in the middle of one of the songs, I for the first time ever, I felt what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
I was I should be an accountant. I shouldn't be playing music.
Yeah.
And I never had that up until that point. So it kind of started a weird thing in my head. And from that point, I had always been the through line from the Sweat Hogs to Happy Anarchy.
Yeah.
Me and Tim Boylan. And when it got to that point, the other people could fall away, and I could kind of cobble things together. I'd been doing that for years. But once I had that chink in the armor, I kind of I was you know what? I don't want to be the main guy anymore. I want to play guitar.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was really great to the song was already written, but I could help arrange something. And I could, and I knew that I had that kind of skill.
Yeah.
That was something I could bring to the table, and I could play guitar. And I really love playing guitar, and I think I really found my voice as a guitar player from that period, that tail end of Happy Anarchy, and then into the seconds.
Yeah.
And I feel I really learned how to be a guitar player because I stopped being the main guy.
Yeah.
And that was really enticing. And so that whole process for Slip Away and I know it's different for you.
Yeah.
But also for Monstro was that that was fun for me. That like took away a thing that like started feeling very like uncomfortable and sad and weird, and became fun. And there was like a new kind of blossoming.
Yeah.
So that was great. So you had these really awesome songs that, and you had really great, cool demos that I kind of almost wish. I think "Slip Away" the song turned out great, regardless.
Yeah.
And I think it really kind of turned into a really good thing. I think our recording of it was really great. But your original demo of "Slip Away" and those other songs like "Bad Friend," there were songs that you didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And you let me listen to those demos that you had, and I was like, no, those are really cool.
Yeah.
Like "Bad Friend" I think is a great song.
And I'm glad I did it, because in the end, like, you know what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
It was it was received well.
Yeah.
You know, and some of those things were really close to the vest back then, where it's like the songs I wrote, I had a philosophy when I was writing those where it's like, you should tell what the song is about.
Yes, no metaphors.
There's
I
no
remember it. I always remember
you
that
should
from
tell
the very
it
beginning.
I wrote very literally, and you should tell what the song's about, and so it was a very storytelling style. I've since I'm not that in that vein anymore, but at that time, yeah, it was very, straightforward, hit people where it counts type of thing, and I think that connected a lot with that probably came from my open mic experience, because people want emotion. They want to connect with you when you're at the open mic, type of thing. I don't know.
But I feel like that was if I'm able to talk about that, I feel like that was a good, that's what made it work, because you were doing that and I was trying to bring in like the out of the box outside, like think of like a song like "Not There." Like, I'm not really playing guitar on it. I'm screaming into my pickups through, pedals.
Trying to bring something in abstract out of that,
Right? So, I mean, and that kind of, I feel like that blend really,
if we were both doing the same thing, it wouldn't work.
No.
Yeah. If
right.
we were also
if I was earnest with you, it wouldn't happen.
That's what gave it the unique sound, though, and that's what really drew me in, because, I always, when people always explained... when people asked me to explain what the seconds were, I said it was Bruce Springsteen meets The Cure, or Bruce Springsteen meets, Pink Floyd. Because, like you said, if you would have just been another guy with an acoustic guitar, harmonizing with him or something, we've heard that,
Right. If it was left to my devices, it would have turned into overproduced, whatever. It would have been too much shit.
Yeah. And at some point, later on, and I thought this was actually really funny. The 2.0 version, it was made up of all people who were originally frontmen at one point. And
for better or worse,
which never butt heads either, which I thought was fantastic.
Because we were the nice guys.
The nice guys.
I'll tell you what, man. Monstro is great.
No, it is. It has a different place, but it's a really great album.
Completely different from Slip Away.
The thing about Monstro, I think, honestly, is that maybe made Monstro less, I don't know, the hook in the scene kind of thing. When Slip Away came out, I had been playing those songs at the open mic every week for years. People knew those songs.
Right.
So when the songs came out, we had a built-in audience that latched onto, oh wow, now it's these guys that I know from all these other places. And Monstro didn't have that. Monstro was a listener. You had to sit down at your house and listen to it.
Oh yeah, it was totally more of a listening thing than a.
And I think that we played it effectively and really true to the album live, but it required that reflection time to listen to it.
Yeah. I feel like the live thing and the thing that I actually like about that time period is that the live thing was different. I don't think we ever...
though. I think we did really good.
I don't think we ever played any of those songs the same way twice.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
We knew where things had to change, and we knew where the arrangement was, but it always sounded different.
And that's, I think, I don't know if it's a then versus now thing, but I think a then thing was that we were playing on a live scene, and the album was secondary. Today, if you come out with an album, the listener base is listening to you on Bandcamp or Spotify. It's an online...
Yeah.
They know you from your recorded stuff, and then the live stuff is in tandem.
Yeah.
Where back then it was like we were a live act,
Yeah.
and our recorded stuff was just kind of like bonus sometimes for the people that saw us in person.
Right.
But for us, Monstro was a recorded album.
It was a recorded album, and it took 3 years to make because a lot of things were happening in flux. All right, so like Mike leaves the band.
Hurricane Sandy happened.
Hurricane Sandy happens, which actually is a big influence on the album. Red Room moves. Red Room Studios was on the other side of the island at one point. And yeah, Chris and I joined the band too.
Yeah.
So like you started making some songs, like songs that weren't even on the album.
I pulled back from the archive for that one, which was good. And again, songs that I didn't want to play. Even today, I feel like awkward listening to, but I'm glad they made it to the album because they're saved, A, and B, they worked out really well for the album.
Yeah. I just, you know what, maybe I also have, like, I have a viewpoint of it that I have no idea. I have no idea how a random listener would take that album. Which is like most bands that nobody knows about. You know, like nobody knows. Like, if this is why I want to find bands that are not huge bands, and I wanna dive into why they've recorded their albums the way they are, and I want to dive into in this podcast.
Yeah.
I don't want to like just talk about like bands that are established. I'd like to talk about bands that will. I say this like with no offense to anybody else that may not, and they kind of know that they're not going to make the big time.
No, but tell us your story. You know,
I want to know because I know what it's like to make something like that and what I was feeling at the time when we were doing it.
Yeah.
And I like it.
Yeah.
Like that's a sad time for me in my life, but at the same time, that's a nice spot because it like dips into this like watery alternate like
There's
psychedelic
a lot in
world
there for me as well. Like I think that if that's the case, like that's sort of what makes Monstro so strange and so, you know, under the surface, Monstro is an emotional album.
It is.
That's why it's Monstro.
Yeah.
It's like the whale that might have killed us type of thing. You know?
Right. It's the Jabberwocky. It's the other side of the mirror, man.
Some of the context here, if people don't, you know, I don't know why you would listen this far if you didn't know, but some of the context though is like, you know, Seconds 1.0, right? We get to Slip Away, and then we start playing, and you guys join the band. Mike does his thing, and, you know, and we get Chris King, and we get Bill Gagliardi.
Hello.
And you know that changes a lot. And as Seconds 1.0, we played a lot of crazy places, right? But I feel like Seconds 2.0 is like the band coming to fruition because we kind of, I like that it happened at a time when the first album was coming out, but we tried not to at least stop the momentum.
Yeah.
And I think it went to a really good place.
Well, I mean, not stopping the momentum was like, when I started playing with you guys, it was really just to like play live shows.
We had shows lined up.
You had live shows.
But also Keys was a new thing, but we had Keys on the first album.
It
was sort of like we already had things you could play. It wasn't like make up parts.
Yes. I remember the first connection was you just released this, I just released my thing. We were playing at not Nuremberger, one of the other beer gardens, Kilmeyer's. Yeah. And the show got rained out. And
Kilmeyer's is pretty good. The sausages might be a little bit greasy, but anyway, go ahead.
But Nuremberger might be a little better, right?
Right, yeah.
But I remember that show, and it was kind of like I was just like sneaking in on like the girl that just got dumped, like because Mike just left the band. So I was like, oh, you know, if you need a bassist, like, you know, I could come, because I was listening to this stuff while I was recording, and I was like, oh wait, I know these songs from when John, because like John and I used to play open mic nights a lot, and I was familiar with them, and I'm hearing them as a full band and saying like, oh, I want to be a part of this. Started playing at a keyboard. Chris would play some shows. Mike Pino would play some shows. I think there was
Pino played.
Mike.
Remember that?
Yeah, he played at the Cargo.
Remember Casey played at...
Casey played at CMJ Rockwood Music Hall.
Yeah, we played at Rockwood at CMJ.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, at the time, you had Concrete members, but, like, there was just, like, John and Joe were the constants, and Patches was constantly on drums. Like, we would have, like, Dave Rodberg would play sometimes, Casey would play sometimes. But the band was in a little flux, but, like, it never seemed that way. It always seemed like
we never stopped playing.
Yeah, you're just going to keep on going.
We played for almost 10 years.
Yes. I remember coming out of a practice. This is in the old Red Room Studios 1.0. And Chris and I are there, and I think we were rehearsing for a Halloween show. We were doing some like Rocky Horror Picture Show songs.
Oh, that was fun.
That was one of our first shows.
Yeah.
I got video of that. It's on YouTube.
And we walk upstairs, and we're waiting outside, or like Joe's locking up, and I don't know if it was Patches or you that was like, so is this the band? Like, is this what we're doing? So it was kind of like what you said originally.
Yeah. What are we doing?
Yeah. Because I don't know if I want to commit to anything, but, and then almost immediately after that, we started writing new music.
Yeah.
We had...
Because at that point, it's kind of like, I had run out of my open mic material. That was really like the 1.0 version, is we were recording all the songs I've been playing open mic.
Yeah.
But then, like, I didn't have anything. So, and I was... Now that we're a band... Everybody's awesome, and you guys were all better musicians than I was. Let's make music, and
this is why I love Monstro so much, because like the Seconds it was all of John's songs, and Joe Patches worked around it.
Yeah,
Monstro was every hand was in the pot, but it never felt like too many cooks.
Yeah,
like. Chris has his song.
It was very, and what was cool about it, what was cool about the band, I think Joe touched on this earlier, it was very, everybody's coming from a different perspective. We all kind of have common ground, but it was like...
Yeah. But like you have like, Chris was coming from like Hot Nights, like...
That's what I mean, we're mashing a lot together, but somehow we made it work.
Yeah.
Do you remember that first practice that Chris came, and we said something to him like, we drink at practice, so maybe, you have a few drinks or something. And for some reason, he just bought a bunch of Four Locos and just got hammered.
Is this where we plugged the Coors Tall Boy? Because that was the drink of choice? Or?
Coors Tall Boy is from Happy Hour. It's actually from Sweat Hogs days.
Oh, wow.
That
carries over to Redbox now.
So. The Red Room Coors Tall Boy, the person that's responsible for that is Darren Siegel.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, bassist from Happy Anarchy. Yeah.
I mean, you could spend $5 and get 4, Coors Tall Boys and just have a great night.
Anyone who might be listening and might be interested in any of this, I'm surprised that I haven't figured out a way to get a plug from Coors, because the Coors Banquet Tall Boy, has been I have been plugging that for about 20 years. Anyway.
But yeah, Monstro started off like I think we were going to do an EP, because there were some songs that we were recording that weren't even on it, like Lead the Way.
Yeah.
We were going for more of like a Scott Pilgrim type of vibe at first, like a psycho surf rock type.
Like a rockabilly, a psychobilly thing.
Yeah. When did Monstro the song happen? Was that one of the first ones?
It was right after Lead the Way.
Lead the Way was one of the first.
Was that a jam?
It was.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, wait. I know there was something where Kids Hug Kids is the first.
Yeah.
But that's really just me, you, and Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we had, it was Lead the Way was another early one. But there was something else.
And this is like my first foray into like collaborative writing.
Yeah,
and it's really, it's still sort of tough for me. But it took me a long time to get my head around like jamming. Because of where I came from, like, my background in writing, like, I don't have any language for music theory. Like, I wouldn't say I write by ear, or I play by ear, like people say, like, because I know all the chords, but, like, I don't have any language for theory. I just know where the chord progression should go when I hear it.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult for me to play in a group. So the whole, I feel like Monstro, every song is sort of like a different musical learning experience for me. Like Kids is definitely like we sat down and that's like a brainstorm session of memories.
Yeah, and we kind of like pieced it together.
And like Monstro is like a jam that like we had, and like I was trying to just like expressing these ideas as they were coming out, you know.
And like Going Out I just moved into that new apartment.
Yeah, Going
in
Out,
that little tiny room, and we're like, let's try to write a song.
Yeah.
I love how we recorded Going Out too, because Going Out, it was.
I don't even remember that.
Going Out is the first song on the album. All it was a room mic, and if anybody is just like who learned guitar in the 90s, probably had a small Gorilla amp. They're just like small little practice amps. So it was just John with it was one of your cheaper guitars too, like that, and just a Gorilla amp and one room mic, and that was the start of the song, and then it just blended into everything else, like all the mics into the room.
Cool.
Which, like
now I gotta listen to it again.
The other thing why I love it so much was like the song Monstro was done on Forest Avenue at the old studio. Everything else that was recorded there, I think Tan had too. Everything else was recorded at the Van Duzer site. So
no, Kids Hug Kids is
right, and Crab I think too. But those were like those were during Slip Away days too.
Right. That was after Mike left, and it was just the three of us.
Okay.
Yes, and like you were starting to do like Island Snack stuff too, right?
Right.
But I think a big part of Monstro was you had a new location and you were just playing with the room. Like think about Beached. Beached was like you had a mic outside in the alleyway and like just like recording the rain and the upstairs tenant buying a pizza.
Right.
You know, like and like we're just like I'm like playing a banjo and Joe's playing the melodica and like you're playing like a slide guitar, but like it's just like just fucking around in a studio, but it works, you know.
It was also the late like aughts like psychedelic period.
Yeah.
And I was also which coincided with my psychedelic like kind of period, so that kind of thing from my perspective is it's a good time for that.
I really feel like it was a lot of like we have a lot of toys at our disposal, let's use them all. Like there's one part in like the first song where John's doing a vocal warm up and I'm like warming you up on the on the organ,
and ends up in the track.
Yeah.
You know, let's also not forget how super cool the ideas for the promo videos.
Oh god, the promos!
Matt Maltese
did a
awesome
great job,
and we still. I was filming something with him, and we still talk about those promos because they were just so simple but so effective. Like just a cool, like, you know.
Yeah.
If anyone gets a chance to,
you can look them up on YouTube or Vimeo or something.
They're on Instagram.
It's a really weird thing to ask somebody else to like dive into your world from a certain time period because they may not want to. Like usually like music is like you presenting something for people because you have an idea that they're going to want to But this is like something where we were asking people to like come into where we were.
You mean with the promos?
With everything. With the whole album, with the promos, with all of that.
Yeah, where it was kind of like and the subject matter. It was kind of like this is where we're at.
Right.
It was a scene.
I would hope that people at some point would be able to do that and understand it.
It was a scene album. It was a scene collaborative album, and the seconds were the anchor because
it was even more of a scene collaborative album than it ended up being.
Yeah.
And the promos incorporate that because they're filmed in the scene.
Yeah.
We have the rooftop. We have the studio.
Yes. At the time, like especially where the studio is located, there was the whole, they called it the Van Duzer scene. Like we had a live music hall right next to the studio. There was another live music venue right across the street. Like the whole block, we had music festivals. We had like roof shows. You know, like it was a really great time in Staten Island in that one neighborhood. But the album itself, like at that moment, like we were taking ownership of that for a little bit because we were including everybody. And if you listen to the Spotify version of Long Live the King, which is the first song on the album, it kind of cuts off, like where it just introduces the band, but the second half of that, it's also featuring performances by, and you start naming like 10 other people, and it's members of the Gigaherbs or members of Captain Ahab and the Sea Krakens, or like all these.
Right, and there's even more that didn't even make it on the album.
Yeah.
There's like there were interludes that were recorded.
Yes.
That was supposed to happen in between each of them that
because
didn't
people
end
were
up
just
on.
in and out, and it was like, hey, we got these songs. Do you want to just throw something down? And they wanted to. They were cool with it.
Yeah.
I remember walking in with like Route 80, which it didn't make the album,
Yeah.
but like there was a brass section. I think they were all from the Sweat Hogs, just like laying tracks down on this. I was like,
Yeah.
this is going to be great.
Yeah.
We still have that too. I want to put that out. But
1975.
1975. Yeah, man, it was a good time.
no, Monster was a great moment, and it was a 3-year process, and then afterwards, like we kept on, like we were starting to write a third album, and
I mean, that came out in 2012 or 2013.
2013.
We played well after 2013.
Yeah,
we just played show after show after show.
Yeah.
All kinds of venues, after 2013. So like the band kept up, like we kept up. It's just
There was the Canada tour.
yeah. We did 2 mini tours. We went to Montreal, and then we went down to DC, right?
Right. Didn't we start DC?
No, it was
DC
separate.
and Virginia.
It was separate.
They were 2 separate things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then we did Vermont and
Yeah, and then we went up to Vermont and Montreal, but the DC one was separate. But it was just a cool time period after Montreal, because it was kind of like we got those 2 albums under our belt, and now we can do whatever.
yeah.
Once you have 2 cool albums, it's like, all right, we're a band now, so that was like a cool experimental time where it was like we could just play shows and like this is who we are,
Right.
and
I guess I never really thought of it that way. Like, to me, it was all just like a continuous extension.
what's cool about where we went with it is that we had these 2 albums under our belt, and then you feel it's not like today where, yeah, but when's your single coming out?
Right.
And the thing is, if your single is 6 months old, you're dead. Like bands used to come out with albums once every 2 years,
Right.
and we had 2 albums out, and we were going.
After that, we just focused on being a live band.
Well, that's the thing. We
Like
had
it's like
demos,
what?
but
Yeah, I mean, some songs are fleshed out in the studio, but
Yeah.
again, like them in the studio versus how they sound live is completely different. And like we really just focused on the live act and like really perfecting like a set.
yeah.
And I mean, I think that's really where
And
it
I think,
blossomed.
like,
You know,
in my head, like I don't see it. Like you said, I don't see it as much as like 1.0, 2.0. I also see it as a continuum because we were in the continuum.
I honestly see the best second stuff is like practices that are on my phone.
Yeah.
There were jams that we had on my phone that were like,
Yeah.
in my
I still got a few
estimation,
of those.
better than like.
I still got a few of those jams that I have on computer from mix downs that are really cool. That I named certain things that we should check out sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there was like so this is the 1975 album of the seconds. I think would have been pretty awesome.
Yeah, hey, there's
Yeah,
still
it's
still here.
it's
Yeah,
there.
but
It could
also-
happen.
It can't. Here's why. Here's why. I'll tell
Because
you
I
why.
lost the hard drive.
No.
Because I deleted this
Because
podcast.
we are different people.
No, I understand that.
And you know what I mean? Like that is the key to anybody out there that
No,
is
I know.
still listening is that if you don't capture where you are at that moment in time,
Yeah, it's a little different.
not even just that it's different, it's dishonest.
Yeah.
What you're doing after that point and trying to unless you're able to flip it around and honor the time you're in now using an old piece of material and revamping it.
So you just figured it out.
But I feel like that's that time and that the thing that makes those jams
Yeah,
and those
yeah.
kind of things special is because of that time period and of us just being drunk and high or whatever and playing and
what we
or
were
just not
experiencing,
or just
yeah.
hanging out together and playing music and having fun,
Yeah.
which is is.
But it
where-
exists. I mean, do you think that we could go back and revamp those ones that we had? Like we finished songs basically.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Because I feel like the energy behind them is part of what makes them good. I feel like that the energy behind all of the second songs from both albums is what made that good.
Yeah.
But a lot of the songs that we were recording at the end, again, translate better live than they do recording.
Yeah, I agree with him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and at the time, too, like, you know, when we were recording those, like, now we're crossing, like, the 30s and 40s threshold. And, like, now, like, all, you know, getting jobs and, you know, moving away and stuff. So, like, that, you know, it's a different snapshot than the, like, younger guys, like, in the scene, getting the scene involved, you know? Like, but, again, like, the energy was always still there. And,
There's you know what, though? I think in our time period, there was too much reliance on a scene.
No, I agree with that. I think that, again, I hate to say that, if I knew what, but it's not even that. If I knew now what I knew then, type of thing, whatever. It's less. It's if the online scene existed in the way it did, and I was engaged in the way I am now, then things would be different, because we had the in-person scene going, and if we could have incorporated an online version like we have now on top of that, I think that would have been explosive for us.
You know who's a great band that it's a band that I produce, but it's like that has I feel the kindred spirit with.
Yeah.
That is doing exactly what you're talking about is Scum Shots.
Oh yeah.
Like Ricky.
Yeah, because they actually play.
Not only that, they actually play, but they have that kind of like.
Presence.
Well, no, they don't like. They're really working on it. They also have like there's their friend Joe Joe Plesha. He like makes really great videos, and he's
and you
like
need that, yeah.
But also there, it feels more. It feels like something like us. Like it feels like organic, and
no,
it feels
like Ricky. I want to connect with that dude.
And it feels like something where that it's not. It's self-aware, but it's not trying to be of the moment.
Yeah.
It's like we're just writing. All I want to do is write a really kick-ass song and have a whole bunch of people like it.
Yeah.
And I want it to be what we do and be weird.
Yeah.
Not like weird for the sake of being weird, but like quirky in the sense of like, oh, that came from that human being. Instead of like, that could have... You know, like, there are songs that are quirky that could be like, oh, that could come from any number of musicians because that's a thing you do. But their songs are definitely theirs.
Yeah.
You know, they have hints of genres that you have heard of, but it's theirs.
Yeah, I gotta listen to more of their stuff because he's
really
a cool
dig that.
dude, and I respect that you say that about them, you know?
Yeah, I think what I recognize is, and I think you would too, I recognize it just because I'm involved with them personally.
Yeah.
That you would really appreciate the mentality behind what's happening.
And I think that was a big part of the seconds, was the mentality behind it.
Yeah.
And that mentality comes from being on the scene. Like, you wouldn't develop the mentality through being a recording act. And a lot of what I did was always very responsive. And I think the band was very responsive. And you need to have something to respond to. And you need to like what we were doing was dialoguing with the other bands on the scene. You know?
But we also filled a role in a time period where people were like polished but quirky indie rock bands.
We're just playing music, and
we were like the drunk loud band at the end of the night that like
but we're still sort of quirky in its own right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like we still fit with those bands.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we weren't a punk rock band, and we weren't just like a bar band. You know, for lack of a better way to say it. We weren't the Headlocks, and I love all of those guys, but we weren't exactly doing what those guys were doing. We're still sort of like quirky and strange and doing the little artsy thing, but also in a way that was like, but we're not putting on a show for you.
It's just straight up rock.
We're just us.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think you would...
It was very honest.
I don't think in a night or in that scene you'd be able to pinpoint where we were coming from. You could just say rock, sure. But it's not just that.
And that's one of the problems with the thing. And like somebody told me a long time ago, if you don't give yourself a genre, somebody else is gonna.
Cool.
But I feel like at some point I would just tell people like indie rock.
Yeah.
I don't know. Rock and like
But think about it, all the great bands that ever existed that like went on to do things where like bands where you're like, that seems familiar, but it's a little bit different.
It's a little bit different. Yeah. I can't put my finger on it.
Right.
And that was us.
Yeah.
You know? So.
But yeah, so that's us jerking ourselves off.
Yeah, no, that
45 minutes.
If you liked what you heard, you could check out the seconds on Spotify. Both Slipaway and Monstro are there. If you want to share anything with us, you could email us at rockpopspod@gmail. And anytime we're going to do these autobiographical shows, we're going to play off one of the songs from the band that we're talking about. So once we figure out what that is, then we're going to put that in right here. So right now.
We'll make love, then we'll make war, we'll sell